Could you afford to go on the Titanic? Let's find out. So this is a very common question. How much did a ticket cost on the Titanic? And it really depended on which class you were and which type of room you booked. So let's take a look at an average ticket price per class. Starting off in third class, a third class cabin like this would have cost you on average £7 or 34 US dollars, which is equivalent to 805 pounds today or $1,110. A second class ticket would have cost you on average £13 or $63, which is equivalent to approximately 1,500 pounds today or $2,060. Now, when it came to first class, it was really arranged depending on the type of room. So a standard first class cabin would have cost approximately £30 or $146, and that's 3,450 pounds or $4,750 today. Or you could get the parlor suite with a private promenade for a measly 870 pounds or 100,000 pounds today. Okay, so were Rose's paintings actually on the Titanic? Great question. I've always wondered this too, actually, and since I'm not an art enthusiast, I turned to the art bloggers of the internet for help on this one, and I have some answers for you. So in the movie, Rose has a sizable art collection with pieces that resemble real paintings by real artists of the era, most notably Picasso, Monet, Degas. Rose even mentions Degas' name right here.
You won't, trust me.
Put the Degas in the bedroom.
At least they were cheap.
So this painting that Jack wants to make love to, this one's supposed to be Water Lilies by Monet. Here's the real Monet painting, and in fact, Water Lilies was part of a series of hundreds of paintings, none of which went down with the Titanic. Here we see Rose with the painting of L'Étoile by Degas. Here's the real painting. It did not go down with the Titanic. It's currently at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. And finally, we have something Picasso with his painting of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. The real painting is in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and James Cameron actually got in trouble for using this. None of these paintings went down with the Titanic. I'm going to show you a room on the Titanic that you probably didn't even know existed because no one really talks about it, so I'm going to talk about it. Let me present to you the padded room. Yes, so Titanic did have a padded room, which was located in Titanic's hospital, which was found on D-deck. And really, every ocean liner back then had some sort of padded room. You gotta remember that back then, ocean liners were really the only form of transatlantic travel, so ships had to be ready for any scenario, including unruly passengers. The padded room was assigned as a last resort for the confinement of, quote, dangerous lunatics, and the padded room on the Titanic was 5 by 6 feet, so as you can see, that's quite small and super cramped and claustrophobic. And again, this was used as a last resort. An unruly passenger would have first been put under house arrest in their own cabin. Now, was anybody put into the padded room during Titanic's voyage? No, not that we know of, though they would have been discreet about it. They would have kept that on the down low if they did. Okay, let me talk about the bathroom situation on Titanic because it kind of sucked, at least by our standards today. Basically, every passenger on the Titanic, regardless of class, had to share bathrooms. They had communal bathrooms just like this. As you walk down the hallways, you would find a communal bathroom for the ladies, and then on the other side of the hallway, you'd find the same thing for the gentlemen. But obviously, the quality of the lavatory facilities really ranged depending on the class. Now, fun fact, actually kind of gross fact, but there were only 2 bathtubs. 2 bathtubs for the entire third class. That's 700 people. 1 for the gentlemen and 1 for the ladies. There were plenty of bathroom facilities, but only 2 bathtubs. Remember that most people didn't bathe as often as we do today, so the facilities back then were actually pretty good for the day. Now, there were 2 staterooms on A-deck that did have a private bathroom, and a lot of the staterooms had a wash basin like this, but besides that, everybody's sharing bathrooms. How did the Titanic originate? Okay, let's go back to the early 1900s and I'll give you a brief little history lesson on how Titanic was born. Let's go. Okay, at the turn of the 20th century, there was only one way to travel across the ocean, and that was via a ship, an ocean liner. And there were 2 major companies competing for that business. That was the White Star Line and the Cunard Line. Now, in the summer of 1907, the Cunard Line was getting ready to launch their 2 new liners, the Lusitania and the Mauretania, and they were going to be the fastest ships in the world. So on a summer evening that very same year, these 2 gentlemen met for a business dinner. Now, this is Bruce Ismay, the chairman of the White Star Line, and Lord Peary, chairman of Harland & Wolff, the shipbuilding company for the White Star Line. And that night they came up with a plan. Instead of competing on speed, they were going to build the 3 largest and most luxurious ships the world had ever seen. The Olympic, Titanic, and Gigantic. Side note, the 3rd ship was later renamed the Britannic. A year later in 1908, construction begins on the Olympic, and in 1909, construction begins on the Titanic, and the rest is history. What is the most absurd Titanic fact that I know? Okay, I'm just going to use this opportunity to list off a bunch of obscure Titanic facts that most people may not know. First of all, did you know that Titanic was not christened? Now, christening a ship was a long time tradition of basically smashing a bottle of champagne when you're naming the ship to give it good luck. Now, why was Titanic not christened? Easy, the White Star Line didn't christen any of their ships. Next, 8 workers were killed during the building of the Titanic, including a man who was crushed by timber when they were launching the Titanic. Yeah, not the safest working environment back then. And finally, did you know that Titanic had an official mascot? It was a cat named Jenny. Jenny was there to control the rat population on Titanic, and the story goes that Jenny had given birth to kittens, and on the day Titanic set sail, she was seen carrying those kittens off the ship one by one. A stoker saw that, took it as a bad omen, and walked off. So did any of these facts surprise you? What was it like to dine on the Titanic? Well, it really depended on which class you were in, so let me take you on a little tour of the ship, and I'm going to show you. So let's go down and visit third class. The question I always get is, was food included with the price of the ticket? And the answer is yes, food was included for all 3 classes. This is the third class dining saloon located on F deck. It seated around 400 people, so meals would be served in 2 sittings to accommodate all 700 third class passengers. And these facilities were amazing compared to third class and other liners. Moving on to the second class dining room, which is located aft on D deck, you can already see it's much more nicely decorated. There's a lovely piano there, and it could accommodate all second class passengers in 1 sitting. Now, first class had several dining options with many restaurants and cafes. The main dining room and reception were located on D deck. The Café Parisien was located on B deck, which was attached to the a la carte restaurant. And there were 2 more cafes on A deck. This is a great question. Why are people so obsessed with Titanic specifically? I mean, there are other shipwrecks, and I want to show you a clip from the movie Ghost of the Abyss, which I think explains it pretty perfectly.
I mean, they're all good, but why is this one?
Well, but look at all the stuff that comes with this. I mean, you've got, the biggest ship in the world. It's on its maiden voyage. You've got the president of the company on board that owns it. You've got the builder on board, and it hits an iceberg, and then it sinks so slowly that you've got all these hours for all this drama to be acted out, and you don't get that with other shipwrecks.
She was so cheated. She was so beautiful. So much energy went into building this creation. The epitome of human engineering and architecture, maritime architecture at that point. And to have it taken away, stolen, just 4 days out of England. And that's part, I guess, of the odd attraction to it. The fact that you just could never have such a thing happen before or since.
Hello, so a lot of you guys are always asking about my Titanic Submersible model, so let me tell you about it. First of all, where did I get it? I actually got it back in like 2003. I'm pretty sure from a Zellers. Shout out to my older Canadians who remember Zellers, RIP. Sadly, they do not make these anymore, although they're selling on eBay for like $1,000. And yes, the model does sink and break apart. All you gotta do is flip it over and set it to sink mode. Then this opens up, and then all you gotta do is place it in the water and watch it sink. So let's watch it. Dang, I'm always so impressed by how accurately it sinks. This is how it splits. This little lever lifts up and detaches. So let's watch that again in slow motion. And that right there is my prized possession. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye. Was there really a cursed mummy on board Titanic that caused it to sink? No, there wasn't. There was no record of any mummy on Titanic's cargo manifest, plus the object in question, this unlucky mummy, is literally in the British Museum. Like, you can go visit it today. It's listed on the website of the British Museum. You can see the serial number, there's the name, the unlucky mummy. It's legit in room 62 of the museum today. They talk about the history of the artifact and the stories and the myths surrounding it, including that of Titanic, and of course they dispel all of those myths. So even though it's a fun story, there was no mummy on board Titanic. In the movie Titanic, Rose was the only woman to be rescued from the water. Now, we all know that Rose wasn't actually real, but there was an actual woman on the real Titanic who was rescued from the water. This is Rhoda Abbott, and she was the only woman who went into the water that night and survived. She was a single mother traveling third class with her 2 sons who were 13 and 16 years old at the time. During the sinking, Rhoda and her 2 boys eventually made it up to Collapsible C, which was one of the last lifeboats left, but since her boys were 13 or older, they were considered young men back then. They weren't allowed on, and she refused to leave her sons behind. Moments later, during Titanic's final plunge, they all held hands and jumped into the ocean together. Sadly, she would never see her sons again, but as she resurfaced, somebody pulled her into the half-swamped collapsible A lifeboat. And her and a few other men remained in that half-swamped boat until they were rescued by collapsible D. Although she survived, she never fully recovered mentally from the grief of losing her children, and she died at the age of 73. What was it like to get a pump on the Titanic? Great question. Let's talk about Titanic's gymnasium. And yeah, it's the same room where Jack calls Rose a spoiled brat, because she was. So, the gymnasium was available to first-class passengers. It was located on the boat deck just behind the grand staircase on the starboard side. I highlighted it right there. And it actually had a lot of state-of-the-art equipment for back in the day. It had 2 electric camels, an electric horse, a mechanical bicycle, a punching bag, a rowing machine, and it was open for different passengers at different times. 9 to 12 ladies, 1 to 3 children, and 2 to 6 p.m. gentlemen. Here's an example of the mechanical bicycles. Those gym clothes do not look very comfortable. And the gymnasium was run by this man here, Mr. Thomas McCulley, and during the sinking, a lot of passengers gathered in the gym, and he stayed at his post talking with them. He went down with the ship and did not survive. And there's a deleted scene in Titanic showing all the passengers gathering. Here we see McCulley telling someone he's not going to wear a life jacket because it'll impede a stroke. Here's another Titanic movie mistake, though. This one you probably didn't notice because it's pretty nitpicky, but we like nitpicky on this channel, so I'm going to point it out anyway. So this one is an inconsistency issue. I'm going to show you a shot here in the authentic footage. Notice this girl in the hat waving to the right. Now the same exact footage is used in the modern day scene. However, you'll notice that instead of facing right, she's facing left. Here she is. There she is with the hat. Boom. Now that went by pretty quickly, so let's see it again. There she is waving to the right. And now let's compare that to the modern day footage, and here she is, and she will be waving to the left. Same girl, same actress, same footage. And yeah, I know it's super nitpicky, but the reason this happened is they only ended up building the starboard side of the set to take advantage of the winds, when in reality, the Titanic would have been facing the opposite direction. So they filmed everything, and then afterwards, they flipped the footage, and everything was mirrored. What's good, Titanic nerds? It's Raph the Titanic Guy Avila here. Thank you so much for watching this TikTok compilation. If you guys enjoyed the video, please don't forget to drop a like and to subscribe to the channel and join our community of Titanic nerds. Also, let me know down in the comments, was there enough room for Jack on the door or the piece of wood, or was Rose just being selfish? Let me know. Also, don't forget to click some of these links here. Some of these videos are really, really cool. I think you're gonna like them. Or don't. I can't force you to do anything. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.